Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I just want to do a quick video on nightmare matchups for Ilia Topuria and some that I think would be an easy win. Ilia Topuria beat Alexander Volkanovski. We're over it now. What's next? We need to figure out what's next because according to Ilia Topuria, he's not going to fight Max Holloway, Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega, or anybody who ever lost to the dude. He doesn't see any reason in fighting O'Malley, which is very interesting, and apparently wants to fight Conor McGregor in Spain, but then went on to say that Conor McGregor is a nobody in current MMA, which is something that I do agree with. A win over Conor McGregor outside of a meaty paycheck means absolutely nothing. But then why do you want to fight the guy? Does that make sense? I don't understand Ilia's mindset, because do you want to become a champion? Do you want to compete to be on that GOAT list of featherweight, or do you want to become a superstar? I have found in recent years those are two completely different things. And I'm going to give you all the potential matchups. There's not a lot. There's admittedly only 6 of them that I think the UFC could make, and I'm going to tell you how I think these fights would go. We're going to start off with somebody that I think actually stands a better chance than people think. Is he going to be a nightmare matchup? I don't know. I'll be moving some around throughout the video, and that's going to be Yair Rodriguez. Listen, what did we learn from Ilia Topuria versus Volkanovski? What have we learned so far in his career? Listen, I'm not doubting Ilia Topuria. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. Ilia Topuria, if I had to sum up his game in as few words as I possibly can, he is a jiu-jitsu guy that fell in love with his hands and has legitimate talent in boxing. It is crazy that he has come this far in striking without any real crazy pedigree in the sport. I think it's funny that boxers will point at Ilia Topuria and being like, that is an example of great boxing in MMA, and that is why boxing is based in MMA. Not knowing that a jiu-jitsu guy got that good in boxing over just a few years. If anything, that proves that getting good at boxing is relatively easy compared to grappling sports. That's a hot take even of myself. I'll defend that in a later video. But Ilia Topuria fell in love with his hands. However, there's a slight problem. It is easier to get good at boxing than it is to get good at kickboxing. We found that out with Ilia Topuria fighting Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert at 155 was able to drop Ilia Topuria, and is honestly probably one of my favorite fights of Ilia Topuria. It is what made me a fan of him. Because Ilia Topuria goes from getting nearly finished by a nobody in Jai Herbert, I'm just going to say it, to in a few years becomes champion over featherweight and beating what some people regard as the GOAT, Alexander Volkanovski. That's crazy to me, but we can learn some things from that matchup. Ilia Topuria has a hard time defending head kicks. Or, as I like to say, he has a hard time defending against people that are strong kickboxers and people that have a vocabulary, a legit vocabulary of striking. That's what really we found out. Alexander Volkanovski threw more head kicks against Ilia Topuria than he's ever thrown in the entirety of his career. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I will say confidently, he threw more head kicks in that fight than I've ever seen him throw in any other fight. I think somebody like Yair, who has a legit kickboxer, creative striker, somebody who's unconventional. I think we have found fighting a conventional boxer like Ilia Topuria sometimes being weird does very well for you. And if I had to describe Yair Rodriguez, he is creativity weird. I'm going to actually say Yair Rodriguez is going to be a hard matchup for Ilia Topuria. For Ilia. Because I think somebody like Yair is going to give him not only a fast jab, which is another problem with Ilia Topuria. He was getting hit by that jab. In all respect to Ilia Topuria, I hate when UFC fighters, when they have trouble in a fight, they'll go into the post-fight press conference, and whenever they get asked a question, is there anything that your opponent gave you that was surprising? They'll just say no. Brother, you were getting lit up like a Christmas tree. Something definitely surprised you. Ilia Topuria said, I did not expect Volkanovski to be that fast. Which is funny. Islam said it was the strength of Volkanovski that surprised him. But Ilia says it was the speed of Volkanovski. I think a lot of people are still underestimating Volk. But this is the blueprint of somebody that I think could be Ilia Topuria right now. Somebody with a real speedy jab, and somebody that has a great vocabulary of kicks. Somebody who can keep him at that range. Yair Rodriguez is very close to that, and I think I already gave away who's going to be our nightmare. Or maybe I didn't. We'll see. I think somebody like Yair Rodriguez would give him a lot of trouble, and is honestly the fight that I would really like to see. Yair Rodriguez fighting an Ilia Topuria near the end of the year. I would love it to be in the Sphere. Like, Alexa Grasso can fight some women's MMA fighter. Yair Rodriguez fighting Ilia Topuria on Mexican Independence Day in the Sphere does go really hard as an event, and I think they should do it. But of course, Yair has to beat Brian Ortega, which I think he is. But just know, Yair Rodriguez is going to be in our hard. Next up, Alexander Volkanovski. This one fucking hurts, dude. He's going in medium. Like, I don't even think he would be necessarily a tough fight to do in the second one, because who benefits more from a rematch? Volkanovski or Ilia? Volkanovski, when they fight, I think Volk is going to be 36, maybe. I mean, he's 35 years old right now. Listen, Volkanovski's next fight is probably going to be Ilia. I know Guru said something about, like, the safe path and the risky path, and I do agree with him. Volkanovski's going to get lit up by Ilia Topuria and probably get more viciously KO'd in the rematch if they do a rematch immediately. Because Volkanovski got head kick KO'd by Islam Makhachev, got KO'd by Ilia Topuria even more viciously than what Islam did to him. A third KO, honestly, you need to start. 3 KOs in a row, honestly, I think we need to call it a day. And I'm not prepared to see that. I don't want Volkanovski to immediately fight Ilia Topuria, but I think he's going to, because he brought up rematch, I shit you not, 19 times in the post-fight press conference. I get it. But he's going to lose, dude. I would say it's a medium difficulty just because it is Volkanovski and you don't know. Maybe he's going to come in heavy wrestling. Maybe he will give Ilia Topuria something new. But I do maintain this. Ilia Topuria is going to be so much more improved in the rematch than Volkanovski is. Because Ilia is 27 and he's going to have this time to improve. Like, think about, Ilia Topuria is only going to improve within the next couple years. Volkanovski is only going to deteriorate. Medium difficulty, which is crazy to say, but it's not going to be that tough of a fight for Ilia. Next up, Max Holloway. What does Max Holloway bring? Just about everything that Yair brings, but the one thing that I gotta knock Max Holloway for, well, 2 things. He is a much more conventional boxer than Yair is. Yair is at least going to be more creative than Max Holloway. And Max Holloway, admittedly, I think is going to become real chinny. Now, I say become real chinny. He's fighting Justin Gaethje at 155. We saw in the Dustin Poirier fight, Max Holloway has trouble at 155. I'm just going to say it. If you're setting the most strikes landed in a fight, you don't have power. That's a fact. And I say the same thing for Strickland. Strickland admittedly doesn't have a lot of power for middleweight. I'm just saying it. Neither does Max Holloway for featherweight. Ilia Topuria has KOs upon 3 different divisions. Bantamweight, featherweight, and lightweight. He did that to Jai Herbert. Max Holloway does bring that vocabulary of strikes, does have that speedy jab. I think it's chinny. I do think he's chinny. I think he's going to become chinny after that Justin Gaethje fight. And I think if anybody has the power to put down Max Holloway at featherweight, it's Ilia. And I think that's what would happen. Now, I do think it would be a more difficult fight. I'm going to put him in our night. It's either Yair or Max Holloway. But who's more chinny? Yair Rodriguez or Max Holloway? Max Holloway admittedly hasn't been put down, so maybe I'll put Yair at hard. He hasn't been put down yet, but I think he will. That's all I'm going to say. I would say Max Holloway is going to be our nightmare difficulty so far. Well, we'll see. We'll see what comes up next. Sean O'Malley. Actually, I'm going to save Sean O'Malley for the end. Let's do Movsar Evloev. What the hell is Movsar bringing? Legitimately. I love that Ilia Topuria was talking about how he wants to get new title contenders. saying no to Max Holloway, Yair Rodriguez, and Brian Ortega, which is kind of a baller move to immediately become, no, even before you become champion, to already lay out who's going to be fighting for the title or who's not. It's delusional, but it's delusional in a baller way, if that makes sense. But then when they ask him up against Movsar Evloev, who is the only new contender to be in the top 10, outside of maybe Arnold Allen, like, who does Ilia want to fight? If we're saying no to the 3 big money fights of that division, you want to fight Movsar? He said no to Movsar because Movsar doesn't have a single finish. Movsar Evloev and Ilia Topuria were supposed to fight. That's why there is a lot of beef and hostility there. But Ilia, who do you want to fight? I'll be real here. Movsar Evloev, I don't know where to put him. I'd either put him in trivial or medium. I just don't think he's going to be that difficult of a fight. I think it would go to a decision. Oh, also, you want to know how to not fight for the title? Threaten the champion by beating him by a decision. I shit you not. Movsar Evloev, when responding to Ilia Topuria saying that Movsar Evloev shouldn't fight for the title because he's only ever won decisions, no finishes, no submissions, no nothing. Movsar Evloev goes on Twitter and says, I will beat you by decision too. That's how you ensure you never fight for a title again. Or ever get to opportunity to fight for their title. That's like a negative fight promotion. That's anti-title Riz, dude. I don't know how you F up that bad. I had a dude message me after the Movsar Evloev versus Arnold Allen fight. Like, direct message me saying, Bilal Muhammad would be proud. Oh, featherweight has its new Bilal Muhammad. I consider that an insult, because at least Bilal finished Sean Brady. Movsar Evloev is an undefeated prospect who can't get a finish to save the life of him. Even when he's fighting people he 100% should be finishing. Oh, and he lost to Arnold Allen. I don't care. Arnold Allen should have won that fight. So honestly, Movsar might be trivial. How about this? I'll move Volkanovski to tough. I'll move... You know what? I'll be this mean. I'll change it to medium to easy. And I'll change tough to medium. Yes, no, I literally have to... medium. That was rough. Okay. Movsar Evloev is going to be an easy. Volkanovski medium. I think that's fair. Because Brian Ortega fighting for the title again admittedly has to go in its own tier. Because Brian Ortega would be the most gimme win in the entirety of that division. I think Arnold Allen stands a better chance at beating Ilia Topuria than Brian Ortega right now. Brian Ortega has been holding up a top 5 ranking for far too long. I hope Yair Rodriguez goes in there and absolutely schools the man, because he should. Yair Rodriguez should dismantle Brian Ortega. Ilia Topuria versus Brian Ortega would be like Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega, but Ilia Topuria is not going to teach you how to block halfway through, and he is going to break the ribs of Brian Ortega with those body shots. He is going to shut down his body with a liver shot and then an overhand right to send him to the shadow realm. You're going to retirement if you're fighting Ilia. I'm just saying that. That's a trivial win. And before somebody says grappling, I get it. There's a chance. Ilia Topuria has super underrated grappling. He just doesn't use it because he wants that 50K bonus. And I respect that. And finally, Sean O'Malley. Do I believe Sean O'Malley beats Ilia Topuria? Not really. Sean O'Malley calling Ilia Topuria his Eddie Alvarez is probably one of the most delusional things I've ever heard. And listen. I think people keep on getting this twisted. I'm not advocating for Sean O'Malley to fight Ilia Topuria. I don't want him to. O'Malley shouldn't even be fighting Cheeto. Logically, let me tell you, logically this is what should be happening right now, but because Dana White privilege is a mutt effer, this is what's going to happen, or what is happening. Sean O'Malley's fighting Cheeto, even though Sean O'Malley should be fighting Corey Sandhagen. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Corey literally beat Cheeto Vera. And then after that should be Merab Devasvili. Cheeto Vera should probably be fighting Piotr Jan, or at best... No, Piotr Jan or Song Yadong. That's what Shido should be doing right now, but because the UFC wants to make money and pad Sean O'Malley's record with a win, they're going to give him Cheeto. Like, I almost want there to be an upset because Cheeto beating O'Malley again would be hilarious. But yeah, no, that's why bantamweight's playing out how it is. And I'm not advocating for Sean O'Malley to fight Ilia Topuria and get that double champion fight. I'm merely telling you what the UFC is planning on doing. Because look how things have played out. Dana White hasn't said anything to Ilia Topuria about, hey, you can't be calling the shots like that. If Ilia Topuria was any other champion and said the things that he said about not fighting these contenders, Dana White would go on Instagram Live and start roasting the shit out of him. And then saying, oh, I guess you're just going to have to fight everybody you said you aren't going to fight. The UFC does not like new champions calling shots. That is a truth. The UFC hates that shit. Unless you're Israel Adesanya or Conor McGregor, where you can sell whatever you want to sell. But the reason that the UFC is entertaining this, and the fact that Dana White goes to Ilia Topuria talking about going to the biggest stadium in all of Spain to sell a fight, even though he's a new champion, is because they want to do Ilia Topuria versus Sean O'Malley there. Listen, I'm not even a fan of that. That would be the biggest possible fight. Tell me this. Do you think Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway is a great headliner for that event in Spain? Like, to the real fans here, yes. To the casual fan, no. They want to see Ilia Topuria fighting Sean O'Malley there. Fill up the stands. And it probably will, honestly. That's what I think's going to happen next, whether you like it or not. Because Dana White hasn't said anything about Conor Jr. Conor Jr. going into every press conference. I'm talking about Ilia, by the way. Talking about who he does and doesn't want to fight. Like, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. But Ilia can do it because they see the star power potential. And listen, him having to fight Sean O'Malley is the ultimate sink or swim moment. If Sean O'Malley beats Ilia Topuria, then Sean O'Malley becomes a superstar. If Ilia Topuria beats Sean O'Malley, you have a superstar. You're going to get a superstar out of that fight. And listen, Sean O'Malley probably isn't a superstar right now. At least in the United States, neither is Ilia. If Ilia beats O'Malley, boom. Top 3 biggest draws in the sport right there. Okay? That is what would happen. And you could fill that card. You could do Marab fighting for an interim belt. You could do shit, dude. You could put so much stuff on that card. That would be an amazing card. I actually kind of hope that happens. But long tangent about explaining to you why that's going to happen. It doesn't make sense, but it's going to happen. Where do I put him? I actually think he's a hard matchup. But I'm telling you this right now. What does Sean O'Malley have that would do good against Ilia? A vocabulary of strikes, good counter ability, solid kickboxing, leg kicks and head kicks, diverse kicks. Ilia Topuria eats head kicks for breakfast. That's what he brings. A good jab. He has a really good jab. I'll give him that. Oh, and movement. I actually think Sean O'Malley would be able to maneuver around Ilia Topuria. The more I talk about it, the more interesting of a fight that actually is. But O'Malley doesn't have power for featherweight. He just doesn't. He barely has power for bantamweight. And before somebody goes in the comment section saying, oh, what about Aljamain Sterling? First off, how many follow-up strikes did he need to end that? And then you had that one can that they brought in for one fight, and he couldn't put him down. Like, that's what I'm saying. He barely has power for bantamweight. He's just a phenomenal striker, and his shot placement is amazing. But he's not going to have power for featherweight, fighting against somebody that has power for lightweight, that being Ilia Topuria. I think that's going to make it a very hard fight for the guy. Now, fights that I would like to watch, honestly, it's either Max Holloway, Yair Rodriguez, or Sean O'Malley. Those are my top matchups for Ilia Topuria that I would like to see right now. I don't want to see these anytime soon. I think Volkanovski's next fight's going to be Ilia because I don't think he wants to fight up the rankings again. But I think he gets put down even worse next time. But hey, if you think I'm wrong, go in the comment section and explain why I'm wrong. Tell me what you think about this video. Do you think I'm wrong? Comment section. Thank you guys for watching, and with that out of the way, adios, guys.